Well, we have competing votes, which means I'll choose whatever I want. Yeah, this week we had the mid-season finale for The Walking Dead, Coda, and before we talk about the plot details in detail, what did you guys think of the episode? I've already getting an impression from the two of you, so maybe expound a bit on that.
Well, before I get to that, I have a beef to pull with the AMC, and I know some people might be aware of this already, but I live on the West Coast, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this because you're both East Coasters, but AMC, in all their wisdom, the Walking Dead social media manager, which is ironic because I'm a social media manager in my day job, but whoever's on that one, they decided to pull a little mess up and post a very pivotal image and some very revealing spoiler stuff on their feed minutes after the East Coast airing of The Walking Dead happened. So I was spoiled on this episode's finale well before I actually got to see the episode, along with, thousands and thousands of other people that also just happened to see it. Now, normally, I don't go to Twitter, I don't go to Facebook when Walking Dead airs because I know better than that, but I know how to also avoid things. But it makes it very difficult when the very show that you're trying to avoid posted on their own media networks, and that was very irritating to me. And it hasn't happened to me before. I haven't been spoiled in that because I'm very good at avoiding these kind of spoilers. But leave it to The Walking Dead themselves to make sure I had a bit of a tainted night in that regard.
Have you considered moving?
I mean, it wasn't even like some oblique, hint or reference. It was literally a picture of Daryl carrying Beth's dead body
with a hashtag and everything.
Yes,
like, oh my God.
with RIP Beth and hashtag. It's like that was just uncalled for.
They've since apologized in their feeds and that's fine. And I'm not the guy that's gonna hold out some kind of crazy grudge because I'm a logical, reasonable person. But at the same time, I don't know if that tainted my thoughts on this episode or not. But getting to that, my thoughts on the episode to wrap this up. I really like the opening 5 minutes, and I really like the post-credit scene. And in between, there was a lot of stuff that happened that I'll respond to later.
I thought this was a real mixed bag of an episode. There were moments I really enjoyed. There were moments I just scratched my head and went, huh? Especially as strong as the season has been so far, for them to hit the end of the first half of the season with this as their finale, I thought was kind of a missed opportunity. Again, kind of a mixed bag for me this week.
And I seem to be in the vast minority, and that I kind of really liked this episode. I definitely had some problems with it, which we'll definitely get into. But as an episode separate from the season in whole, because I have even more to say about that was bothersome. As an episode by itself, I kind of really enjoyed it with some reservations. But we'll get into all of that. So I know our listeners are also, not to spoil things, sorry Jerry, but are also more on your guys' side than mine. And I get that. It seems to be pretty much everybody disagrees with me on this one. But whatever.
I'm just glad that we all have a new idea for the spin-off series in mind about Percy. I feel like he can go places.
He's the breakout character of this. He's the breakout character of this season, for sure. Percy and just the strawberries, his whole black market network.
Being pushed over by random jerks.
Yeah. Because everybody hates Percy. Except Beth likes Percy, but spoiler, she's not around, so he's screwed.
Noah loves Percy because everybody gets the heat off of everybody hating Chris.
All right, shall we get into the actual plot summary, gentlemen?
Oh, there's an episode? Yeah, okay, let's do that.
Yeah. So, episode 508 was entitled Coda, and it was directed by Ernest Dickerson, a long-time Walking Dead mainstay, and written by Angela Kang, and it has a bunch of guest actors, most of which I think we've had in the last couple weeks. But I'm going to read mine because there are a couple new ones there. We have Christine Woods as Officer Dawn Lerner, we have Tyler James Williams as Noah, we have Eric Jensen as Dr. Stephen Edwards, Maximiliano Hernandez as Sergeant Bob Lamson, Christopher Matthew Cook as Officer Lakari, Ricky Wayne as Officer O'Donnell, Terry Webble as Officer Shepard, Kyle Clements as Officer McKinley, I hope that's Ted C, Rico Ball as Officer Franco, Mark Gowen as Percy, the ever-wonderful Percy, and uncredited, Lenny James as Morgan Jones, if you remember to say after the credits.
Can we have a contest where we put up the names and pictures of those people and have a matching thing going on? So if they can do it in less than a minute, give some kind of prize away.
I could probably do. I'd say there's 2, maybe 3 officers that I'm confused, but the others I could probably do.
I know Lamson, I know Bob, but everyone else I don't know these names.
You know Bob from the Captain America and the Marvel movies, so at least I did.
And Shepard is pretty easy because it's the only other female cop other than.
Well, if it just said Officer Shepard, I don't know if that's a female name.
No, but I do. So what I'm saying is because it's the only other female, I can't get her confused. The others, not entirely sure.
Okay.
There was a rapey guy, but he's dead.
Who was the largest cop in history? What was his name? I don't remember.
Is that Lakari or is that McGinley? I don't know.
I don't know. Giant guy.
Even if you took out Dawn's name and said Officer Lerner, I have no idea who that is.
Well, I don't even think they ever said. Well, they probably did at some point say Lerner, but they always just called her Dawn.
On her badge or something.
Yeah, Sergeant Dawn. Anyway, this episode starts out with several different things happening simultaneously, where it's a little bit purposely obfuscated, so you can't really tell what's happening exactly. You do know that Officer Lamson is trying to sever the plastic cuffs around his hand, or the plastic zip ties, whatever exactly it was, on a sharp piece of the front of the cop car he had come in, or the other cop car, I forget which one it was. Exactly, you have someone running, and you only see their feet pretty much, and you have zombies coming in at something. Those 3 things come together as the zombies start creeping up behind Officer Lamson. He sees them, and so he starts running before even his cuffs are undone, and we eventually see that the running feet are Rick, who apparently was alerted to Officer Lamson's escape very soon after he escaped, and he's chasing him down. Officer Lamson runs away from the car. Rick gets to the car, chases down Officer Lamson while using the loudspeaker on the car to tell him to stop. Just stop. I'm telling you to stop. Officer Lamson doesn't, and so Rick runs him down.
He rolls it.
Awesome. He does Rick roll.
I gotta give credit to my friend Scooter on that one. He came over that line right away, and that made me laugh quite a bit. So, we missed, but when Rick's running, by the way, he slashes the zombies' guts, and they all fall out in the thing.
In kind of an overly obvious CG shot.
Yes,
I didn't think that effect was particularly convincing.
I wouldn't either, but I like the visceral nature, Rick running real fast. Oh, there's a zombie, and gets him real quick. I really like this opening scene, and we'll get to what happens next. We didn't even finish off the opening scene yet, but I really like the editing choices made here to kind of give this kind of. I mean, if you're watching the show, you know what's going on, but it's still kind of an indie res type opening situation where it's just things are happening, and it's just really well edited. I enjoyed that.
I thought that Rick had other options here. He could have shot him in the leg or slowed him down or whatever, but by killing him, he kind of screwed his own bargaining chip. You know what I mean? I agree, it's a cool sequence and a cool scene the way it was shot and everything, but I just kind of, I guess Rick is still a little crazier than I'm giving him credit for.
Rick has no time for your nonsense.
I guess not.
He's like the 12th Doctor with a gun.
I mean, I know Daryl had to talk him down the one time for killing the cop, but I explained him the 3 was more than 2.
So, like Jim alluded to, once Officer Lamson is down and appears paralyzed, from what we can tell, and what is intoned by Officer Lamson, obviously there's no medical checkup being done at the time.
I think he's more of just he got knocked down and he can't just get up because it hurts and his arms are bound behind his back.
I mean, I'd have to go back and watch the scene, but I don't think he moves aside from his head at all for the next minute and a half he's on screen.
I think it's just because he's hurt. He's not going anywhere. Rick's not about to let him get up and walk away again.
Yeah, but he doesn't even squirm.
He has a head injury. He did fall flat in his face essentially.
He got hit by a car.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's paralyzed. He's not wanting to move right now.
Well, it's irrelevant eventually because he pleads for his life. He has to be taken to the hospital, and Rick is having none of it. He shoots him in the head and then says, "Shut up," and returns to the group, which was awesome.
Yeah, I like this badass Rick care mode. I enjoy seeing this in action. I understand. It's not that I'm saying that his actions are justified or whatnot, but if I'm going to see a version of Rick, this is a preferred version that I enjoy at this current time.
Yeah, like I said, it was a cool scene. I just kind of was questioning the logic of his actions when he was doing it, but it makes sense for him to do it.
He attacked one of their people. He
right.
was already lying to them, so or may have been lying to them, but he already tried to screw him over. So Rick returns to the group, and there's some discussion. Will this result in violence between Rick's group and Dawn's group? Should we still try the deal, or should we just go in with the original plan? And they decide to still that the other officers that they have captured, Officer Shepard and Lakari, which means Lakari is the giant guy. They agree they will concoct a story that Lamson was killed by walkers. They won't give up the ghost. They will. Am I even using that phrase correctly? I have no idea. They won't let Dawn in on what really happened. They'll go along with it. They just want this to be over, more or less.
Which I believe. I have no reason not to. It's like based on what we're being told about this whole Grady situation, which we'll get into why I don't really care about Grady or how poorly I feel like it's established. But yeah, I mean, I get Dawn is apparently not the strongest leader in the eyes of everybody else, so them lying to her about something makes complete sense to me.
And not very well liked by her own people either. It seems.
Yeah.
Even the ones that are like incredibly loyal to her don't like her.
See, here's the thing. I had a hard time believing them because neither one of them looks particularly trustworthy. Like, Maximiliano Hernandez looked the most trustworthy, and of course he wasn't. Officer Lucari, looks like he's just going to, I don't know, kill you with his eyes. And Officer Shepard, she also, just something about her seems squirrely. So I was not prepared to trust either one of them.
I can agree that I wouldn't stake my life on their word, but at the same time, given the Dawn situation that we've been presented with, I can believe them at that current time, given that Rick just shot a guy in the face, and there's not any other options happening.
With the outside full information of seeing the entire show and not just being in their shoes or in Rick's shoes, sure, I get that.
Yeah, they seem to dislike Dawn as much as I do.
Yeah.
So at the hospital, order is starting to break down. One of the officers fails to respond to Dawn's attempt to communicate with them, and they begin to lose faith in Dawn's leadership. There is a scene between, you have multiple things. You have Percy getting bullied by one of the officers. Beth tells him off. I believe Dawn tells him off.
And then he gives him a really creepy, rapey look.
Super creepy, yes. For any of us who were complaining that early on we only really saw one evil officer, it seemed, in the first episode, it's pretty much confirmed that all of them are pretty awful.
Yeah, they really made me aware that all these guards have evil switches on their backs, and they've all been flipped on position. So.
And they have the scene between Beth and Dawn, where I really liked the scene. And the thing is, I wish it had been. This is what I was talking about with this episode by itself. I kind of really liked, but there were some things where, in the context of the larger season, I had problems with that scene between Beth and Dawn, where they just, where Dawn is really assuming the role of emotionally abusive boyfriend, but trying to make it seem like she's on Beth's side. And all that should have been in the first Beth episode of the season. That was the most interesting thing that Dawn has done this season, and by keeping it this far, I think it really hurt overall reception to the character of Dawn.
I can't stand the character, and even with the emotional scene that you're referring to, I find her poorly motivated. I find her not charismatic enough to be a good villain or to be even a good heavy, and she doesn't even seem to have a raison d'etre for what she's doing, other than I need to defend order because order is what I've known. Her motivations are just really murky to me.
Even a basic understanding of how you write this character out, it just seems boring and repetitive. It's like it's another tyrannical leader trying to hold on to power and holding on to a shaky truce in some society that they've developed. Except this character's not nearly, even the governor who I had problems with, not nearly as fascinating as that character or the termites. I mean, it just feels like a repeat that's been copied too many times and just comes out far inferior to the people that preceded her as far as kind of villainous characters go.
It's kind of a bummer because she could have been a really cool, they could have used the characters showing what Rick could have become. An alternate Rick, path that Rick could have gone down because they're both in law enforcement when this happened and everything. Or they could have done so much more with the characters than they have. I mean, like you said, the termites are more interesting. The governor was more interesting. Some of the governor's henchmen were more interesting than Dawn. I just don't, I don't buy her motivations. I don't buy her menace. I don't understand why we're supposed to buy that she's an authority figure in this situation.
I think there'd be less of an issue if I felt like Grady had a better establishment from the get-go. I complained about having this to begin with just because I didn't like Slabtown as much as an episode. But at the same time, if they gave me less of shaky ground to work with, if I really understood the process of Grady, not just giving a basic some people really suck here and you work off your debts. It just seems like the rules are too scattershot without me getting a clear understanding of how it's being governed and whatnot. Where I already didn't care about Grady, and now we have this kind of pivotal episode hinging on the politics of Grady and getting people in and out of there. I didn't end up caring that much about it, which is what my main issue is.
Yeah, and I guess my issue is that I just don't know the why of Grady. I can explain to you why the governor did what he did. He was batshit crazy and craving power. Or I can explain to you why the Terminites did what they did or whatever. Or even the claimed guys. I can give you their raison d'etre or whatever, but I cannot do that for Dawn. I just can't. It just doesn't. It's not well defined enough, and what is there isn't interesting enough to make me want to fill in those blanks myself.
I want to hear you. I'm sorry, we keep kind of going bad here, but I want to just back up one quick. The character of Christine Woods, to her credit, there's a show on HBO called Hello Ladies, and she was the co-star on the show of Stephen Merchant, who's best known for working with Ricky Gervais a lot, like The Office.
And the voice of Wheatley in Portal 2.
Yeah.
She's the voice of Wheatley in Portal 2. But she's on that show, and she's a good actress. She's a funny actress. I do like her, and I've seen her in other things I like. So I'm not just really against Christine Woods as an actress. I think she's doing what she can given the scripts that she's given and whatnot. It just feels like a bit of miscasting and a bit of weak writing in the part of this character, and it just rubs me the wrong way.
It's the character, not the actress.
What do you have to say?
Well, with all that said, and while I don't agree with everything you're saying about the character, I don't really have that hard a time understanding her motivations. But that aside, that still loops me back around to my original question of if this scene in particular, before the violence and everything that comes in the second half of the scene, if this had taken place in Slabtown and we had expanded on the character and her motivations and the hows, wheres, and whys from there, instead of the repetitive nature of the character up until this point, do you think it would have served the show better? Do you think it would have served the character better?
It's possible. I concede that. There's plenty of ways to make things better, and I think if you had time spent on strengthening a character like Dawn and with having these conversations and reconfiguring how Beth and Dawn interacted as opposed to just having her randomly slap Beth and having us have to pick up pieces after the fact, that would probably have been more effective. So yeah, it's difficult to say. But yes, I agree. It could have been more. If you move various character-based scenes around and replace scenes that I didn't think helped Slabtown very much, sure, that probably would have helped the episode and this episode.
Like I said, most of the scenes that Dawn has been in so far, I haven't had a problem with them. I haven't loved them, but I thought they were fine. But this was the first scene that made me go, oh, okay, I really think I get this character now, and I wish it had been way earlier.
I think I still had just residual problems with the Slabtown episode, where it just felt like every scene in that episode was another random character that I'm not going to care about 3 episodes from now monologuing, and so getting more scenes of just Dawn, to a character I already am not a big fan of, monologuing towards 2 characters that died in this episode. By the way, it's like, so what are we really getting out of this in the long run? Beyond oh, I get it now, and I feel like I could have got what she got in much less time spent on these characters. So, but I'm just hearing lots of monologues between 2 characters, one of which is getting better, Beth, and the other is one that I just don't care about. And by the time this episode ends, I'm done with Dawn, and so her dying's like, all right, what, doing good. And Beth, it's like, well, you were just getting interesting, and now we've just instead got to a shocking death with you. It's just some things that just hurt me throughout this, the way it was put together.
Yeah, I think if they'd gone a little further, a little better with Slabtown episode and making us care about what was going on in Grady, I see your point, Jordan. That would have more gravitas when all this went down in this episode. But as it stands, by the time they got to the scene, it just seemed like too little, too late for me.
Fair enough.
I can't say they're not trying. I get with Slabtown, we were kind of, and I know some people brought this up on the Facebook page, facebook.com/WTV podcast. It could have worked as maybe like a webisode series involving Beth. And I think at the point that we're at now in this episode, I'm much happier that this did get fleshed out to the point that it did. I'm not exactly happy with the result, but at least they tried to do something. I wouldn't say I wish they did something completely different from this plot, because I don't think that's true. I'd rather see The Walking Dead try to be an ambitious television series as opposed to repeat something that already worked once and try their bets again. So they're trying, and credit where credit's due. There's a lot of interesting direction in this episode. We'll get to some of the scenes coming up and things like that. But yeah, a lot of it just didn't work for me as well as they probably wanted it to.
So the second half of the scene we get to is that one of the officers has overheard this conversation in which Dawn has admitted to several things she's done or covered up that the officer wants to use against her. He threatens to do so. There is a scuffle, is probably too minor of a word, but there's a fight, and eventually Beth ends up jumping in and pushing him down an elevator shaft.
There's a fight with heavy emphasis on Foley sound effects. There's a lot of punching and walls being hit, and I was like, yep, it certainly so I had a lot of fun scoring this scene. When Beth began the scene in the elevator shaft, like sitting with her legs over the things, like think about things. I was thinking this scene has to end with somebody falling down the elevator shaft, or else it's a waste of a setting.
It's Chekhov's elevator shaft.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Later on, Beth accuses Dawn of manipulating her into killing both Officers Gorman in Slaptown and O'Donnell in this episode, who was the elevator shaft guy, because they were threats to Dawn's position, and she again says she's going to escape. Dawn denies it and says she's going to remember Beth's support by killing the guy. And during the conversation, right at the end, or at least this is where I noticed it, we see that Carol has woken up. It doesn't seem like Dawn has noticed, but it seems like Carol is awake and has heard most of the conversation.
Yeah, my disinterest in Dawn led me to just watching Carol breathe for most of the shots. So yeah, I did. The end of the scene was she woke up all of a sudden. And, obviously the next scene is like, oh, you're like, what's up?
Then we return to the church, or the church crew, for one of my other least favorite storylines. Although this one was at least the best of the Father Gilliam stuff, probably, because it barely says anything.
Okay, read on.
So Father Gabriel remember last episode he fled the church, stepped on a nail. Maybe it was a Jesus illusion, maybe not, but we'll get back to that.
Maybe we hope he never returned.
Yes, well, except we knew he would from the scenes from next week's episode. But he gets to the school where the termites, the hunters, were hanging out, where they'd eaten Bob's leg. And like we talked about the scene in the spoiler section last week, he finds a leg, he finds a Bible, with a name in it, probably of somebody who knew and whose death it led to by not letting them into the church, just because that sounds like something he'd do, because it's awful. But eventually the walkers break out of the school, which I don't know that I'd been exactly clear on that's what it was when we saw the termites there, that the walkers were trapped in the building.
Yeah.
I thought they were kind of like stood on the other side of a wall, but yeah, it seems like this is like a school full of zombified people.
That's kind of, actually, I completely agree, Jordan. That is kind of how I was taking it. They're just kind of more boxed away from them, not necessarily trapped inside of something. So yeah, it's neat to see that it's more clear now, I guess.
Yeah. And so Gabriel limp runs back to the church, tries to crawl back under, can't quite make it, runs around to the front where they've set up not even really cow traps, but they've set up spikes to kill the zombies. He bangs on the door, which alerts Michonne and Carl to the fact that he was even gone in the first place. They have to chop the door, not chop the door down, but chop down the wood they'd nailed over the door to get him back inside. The zombies follow them. They escape through the floor the same way he did. A zombie falls into a machete, which was awesome.
Yeah.
His only kind of kill, Gabriel being he. Then they try to decide what they're going to do, and Gabriel says he can't keep running, and Michonne says they're not going to run, and she heads back into the church to slaughter the rest of the zombies, because Michonne's awesome. Carl also gets some awesome stuff to do, but it's mostly Michonne.
As this whole, I don't even this stuff. So I don't watch like the next. I don't wait for like I don't watch Talking Dead very much. I maybe watch like the first 5 minutes sometimes if it's because I'll watch the episode a few times and write the review and then like it's like 1:30 and it's like okay I'll watch this, see what went on for a few minutes. So I don't get to the next week on scene or the exclusive clip scene. So I didn't I knew there was something about Gabriel, but I wasn't sure what that was exactly. All of that being said, last week I was very specific about my point of not caring about Father Gabriel because he just seems like a character that's going to inevitably cause harm to everybody else. And sure enough, what does he do? He brings every zombie from one place to the one place that they can call shelter currently and ruins it for everybody. And it's just it boggles my mind why this character's still with the group. It's like this is where you get banished. Rick had to do this. I don't know what Michonne's thing is like. Hey, let's bring him in the fire truck with us because he's a good guy at heart. We don't need him. He's not helping. This is too many cooks. This is too many guys.
So I mean, there were interesting things that they were trying to do with the scene. One, you had the reverse of fortune with him being the one trapped outside the church, being pursued by zombies and trying to get back in. The same thing he had done to his congregation. I get it. You get some cool zombie killing action because it's pretty much the only place in the episode where you get much of that. There's a few zombies here and there, otherwise they get killed, but it's mostly here. And then there's another weird crucifixion illusion, maybe, or possibly I'm reading far too much into this, but where they nail after all this, they nail another board across the front of the church doors and use old school, like really like probably 1920s, but they look like classical representation of Jesus nails, if you will, into the door on either side of it. And that was just after him getting hit in the foot with a nail last week. Seeing those old school nails being used on a board in that position here was really weird. I don't know if they're trying to do something with it, but it felt weird.
Yeah, this is The Walking Dead. So yes, there's plenty of non-subtle imagery going on. And sure, if I have to choose between seeing zombies like fall into machetes and Michonne use a sword over seeing Dawn use an exercise bike, I'll choose the former. But it's just it's so like the Gabriel stuff is just so like just idiotic decisions to me every step of the way. And yes, it comes from a character that's been established as basically a coward and a klutz. But my God, my eyes were just like stuck in permanent roll as I'm watching this guy lead hordes of zombies back to the damn church, like with the innocent boy, the woman, and a baby inside, and like begging to be let in. And I'm sitting there it's like we nailed the walls to not let this happen. Carl, get away from the door. We purposely made everything fortified so no one gets in. You got out, get in the way you came in because we're not letting you in. That's what I'm screaming.
He snuck out. He should have just snuck back in. And that's what I was screaming at the screen. Like, why didn't you just go back in the way you came? Plus, you're right. It's like, hey, all you walkers, guess what? Fresh baby, come on down to the church.
And his motivation, at least according to him, was he had to see for himself. And from that, I gathered that he had to see that they were really cannibals and had really been eating Bob's leg there. But they pretty much admitted that to him through the door when they were threatening to murder him and the baby and everyone else. So I don't know why he would need that proved. Like, it was just like I said, there was some cool stuff in it. But my God, leave this character behind.
Once again, like I said last week, it's like Herschel, except all the cool stuff about Herschel is not apparent to this character at all. It's like, what? He needs to believe. Oh my God, this guy. And it's like, it's me taking a break from the Dawn stuff, which I already don't like that much, and going to this idiot. It's like, this is not helping this episode at all for me.
Like every complaint that some of our listeners have against the existence of Judith, I want to just point that lens right at Gabriel.
What has Judith done? Who's Judith got killed? Nobody.
She cries at the appropriate time and otherwise is incredibly silent and motionless.
Preternaturally so for a baby of that age.
Yes, exactly.
Personal experience.
Exactly.
Know who Judith got killed? No one. Know who's lived longer than a lot of people? Judith. Why? Because she hasn't got anybody killed.
Exactly.
Judith ain't out there leading a bunch of walkers to the church. I mean, what the hell?
Also, we should mention who helps Michonne kill all the walkers inside is Abraham's group, who arrives on the fire truck. Basically, do they even crash into the building? They kind of crash into the spikes and stuff.
The steps and everything. They block the door. That's essentially what he does. He just
and they come help everybody. And they clue them in. Eugene's mission was a lie, etc. And Michonne informs Maggie that they know where Beth is, and they all decide to head to Atlanta.
Seriously, the second Michonne said to Maggie, it's like, Beth's alive. The look Maggie gives, I swear I thought he was going to say, wait, who, Beth?
I thought Beth was dead.
I have a Beth. That's more my mind. It's like, there's a Beth.
Beth. I seem to remember her.
And like Glenn walks up, like, yeah, your sister. Oh, yeah, sister.
Right, that Beth.
So meanwhile, in Atlanta, Rick has the first of a couple showdowns at the OK Corral with a pair of officers from Dawn's group, and he proposes a trade for Shepard and Lucari for Beth and Carol. And there's some nice moments here, such as where they ask where the rest of his team is, and the rest of his team, who all have sniper rifles or other various accoutrements pointed directly at those officers from the top of buildings. I believe it's Sasha shoots one of the walkers who's approaching Rick and the group, and Rick waits a beat or two and then just says, they're around, which was awesome.
Yeah, this, like, all the Rick stuff is solid. This episode, like, I have no complaints about Rick and the gang. Like, they're doing their thing. It works. Mm-hmm. It's straightforward and simple. There's not too much. I mean, the discussion that happens is the only talked about earlier, which is the other cops lying for the sake of lying to make Dawn feel whatever. But I like this part portion of the episode, and yeah, like that meetup scene, like the way it's shot, like we talked about it last week. I think in the closing segment, like it has this kind of Western vibe to it. Like it feels right. It feels good.
So they agree to the trade, and Rick's group meets Dawn and her officers at the hospital. Beth packs up her stuff, and we see her hide a pair of scissors or sutures, probably the same ones from Slabtown, in the cast on her arm. The trade is very tense, very good scene in general.
Yep.
They trade one person at a time. One of Dawn's officers for Carol, and then the other officer for Beth, and everything seems like it's going to be fine. But at the last minute, Dawn says, but as a condition, you have to give us Noah back. Beth was my aide, my orderly or whatever, and since I don't have her anymore, I need Noah back. And everyone pretty much says, well, that's not going to happen, but Noah finally agrees, look, if it's going to keep everybody safe, I'll go, don't worry about it. Beth gives him a hug, but then she turns to Dawn and tells her that she knows now what she needs to do, and she stabs Dawn in the shoulder with her scissors, causing Dawn to reflexively fire her gun, shooting Beth in the head and killing her instantly, which causes Agent Daryl to shoot and kill Dawn in response.
You know, there's a lot of tension in the scene because there's a lot of Dutch tilts going on.
Oh, yeah.
It was a very Dutch angly room, that's for sure.
Now, yeah, as I said, AMC kind of ruined the fact that this was going to take place, but at the same time, it is shocking to see, how it happens because I didn't know what was going to happen. And yeah, just seeing Beth suddenly take a bullet in the face and like in the angle on that shot. And again, I watched this episode like 3 times to write the damn review. So like, I see Beth's like head explode like multiple times in one night. I'm sure that's a gif somewhere.
Back and to the left.
It was pretty
Back
brutal.
and to the left.
That was something. And then yeah, I was like yelling at him. Everyone's like, "Where's Daryl?" So he's gonna react to this. Sure enough, walks right out and shoots Dawn in the face. And so a lot of tit for tat going on. And Dawn's gone. So yeah enough. But yeah, I mean, as far as shocks go, sure, it's shocking. Even spoiler aside, it's a shocking thing to take place.
Oh yeah, I actually exclaimed when it happened. Like, it surprised me.
It's yeah. As far as what it means for the show, like you don't need Beth, and if anything, I should have not that I like try to predict who dies in the show, but it makes sense to me looking at it now that Beth is the one who goes because the show is we've basically inserted an entire plotline involving just Beth just to keep her on the show while everything else seems to be working just fine without her. So it makes sense that you don't really need her on the show at this point, given the large ensemble cast and the fact that most of the other characters are a little bit more interesting. Although Beth has become a stronger character despite my gripes with the episodes involving her this season. I mean, it's a shame she's gone. The shock is shocking because that's what shock is. So yeah,
it's not so shocking though because it's The Walking Dead. I mean, we expect cast members to die.
Yeah.
Of course, in the season, at least I do. I mean, having read the comic and watched the show this long. I mean, granted that the scene itself had the shock, but afterwards I was just like, oh well, thank goodness Dawn is dead. I don't have to listen to this boring character anymore. I mean, Beth has been around for a while, but like you said, Erin, she's kind of become extraneous since being abducted, and the only service she's like provided for a few seasons now is singing the dramatic song at the end of the episode when we get the recap of where everyone is.
Well, and watching Judith.
Yeah, she's become something of a punchline in that regard. And
well, Tyrese watches Judith more.
With that, and we should get back. We had the Tyrese Sasha scene we skipped over too. We should get back to it in a bit.
True.
But yeah, Beth has become something of a punchline involving the song stuff, and given that a lot of people were predicting Carol might be the one that bites it this season, given all the development we had for her character, it almost seems like a kind of a sleeper miss that no one was really thinking about Dawn, or at least not voicing that opinion as loudly, because Beth got just as much characterization this season as well, to an extent, to which it led to her being the one to die, which, as we've kind of brought up on the show before, the characters that get suddenly a lot more character development tend to be the ones that get bumped off the show, with like the exception of like Rick for obvious reasons. So it's Jim, I understand that the show that one of the things about it is that it has shocking character death. That's something that goes with the comics and something that goes with the TV show. And yeah, I'm not really, I'm not emotional about Beth dying. I don't really care about the show in general, despite certain things that take place. But when was the last time we had like a major character death? I guess it was like Herschel. Was it like
you had Bob, you had Herschel.
Bob.
Well, I would say Bob is about as major as Beth. She's been around longer, but in terms of actual doing stuff, probably about the same.
I guess more like
major,
shocking.
The little girls were around for. I mean, the shockingest death was probably Carol killing.
Yeah, Mika and the other one, whose name escapes me.
The other one, yeah, sure.
Lizzie.
Her.
Yeah, Herschel. I'm trying to think of any others.
What was the doll's name? That's gonna be that too.
Oh, I remember it was funny, but I don't remember. It was like Matilda,
it's like
Esmeralda.
It's a P. I think it's a P. Hold on, I can find it.
Priscilla?
Penelope Winterbottom.
It's like Penelope something. Oh my god. But yeah, I guess I meant more like shocking deaths. So yeah, little girls, that'd be a good one. Herschel's a good one. Like Bob's more. You knew Bob was gonna die, I think, because I mean he was bitten. Like it wasn't shocking that he died. It was just more of an inevitable. And my point that I was trying to get at though is that yeah, we haven't. There was like a time in season 3 when they got to the prison when it was like T-Dog and the wife, Lori. It was just like one after, like there's a lot of deaths happening like every week. It seemed
and Andrea died at the end of that season.
Yeah, it was like there's a lot of character deaths. And that was something I was not necessarily complaining about, but something I was kind of noting is like how much is too much, guys? Like how much are we trying to shock versus how much are we trying to tell an effective story? So I could appreciate them trying to bring like an arc to a close and using a death as a way to put that together as well. Like there's the way it came together. That makes sense to me. Was I a fan of how everything went down to get to that point? Not necessarily, but at the same time, at least we can move on. And yes, we got to see Emily Kinney provide a good. I think she did a good job with the Beth character, given that I've constantly kind of put her at the bottom of the list in terms of Walking Dead characters. So I mean, the fact that she stepped up her game and got more to do, I can appreciate that. But yeah, so here we are.
So this leads us to our, let's say, third standoff, which is after Beth and Dawn are dead, where everybody's pointing guns at each other. When it's finally Officer Shepard who steps up and says, everybody put your guns down. It was between Beth and Dawn. They're dead. It wasn't our fault that Beth died. We're kind of happy that Dawn died. There's no reason for anybody else to get shot, and everyone reluctantly, but it does, put their guns down. Dr. Edwards proposes that Rick and his group stay at the hospital. Rick turns that offer down pretty quickly, and instead he offers anyone in the hospital who wants to can leave with them. But apparently only Noah does, which was really surprising. And as they exit the hospital, they encounter the rest of the group. Maggie breaks down when she sees Daryl carrying Beth's body. And Daryl has already been crying the entire time.
Oh yeah. In the post credit scene, you see Percy trying to catch up to the guys. He's like, wait, I want to come too.
At the time, I was like, wait, no one else? Like, it's supposedly so horrible there, and we've seen it's pretty bad in the hospital, and no one else follows Rick's group. I mean, Dawn was bad, but she was the one kind of keeping everyone else in check. But I guess Rick and his group all do look like crazy hill murderer people. So I don't know. I guess I in retrospect can buy that even Percy would decide to stay behind.
Griselda Gunderson is the name of the doll.
Griselda Gunderson.
I don't know where Lord comes up with a name like that, but there you go. I know qualms with the who was leaving and who was staying as far as the hospital goes. It seems like Noah, the least he could do is come with Rick and the gang since he works hard to try and make everything work out. But yeah, as far as like emotional states go of characters, been a bad year for Maggie, who lost her father only a few months ago, and now has to deal with being told that her sister's alive, only to arrive to see the corpse of her sister in the arms of Daryl with a giant head in her, hole in her head. So not a great time to be Maggie right now. And I could, despite our joking about Maggie not seeming to remember the fact that she had a sister, sure, the sentiment's there. You can see in her eye that she looks devastated that her sister's died, and that it's presented right there in front of her as opposed to being told about it. So.
Before we get to the post-credit scene, Aaron, you had mentioned the scene with Sasha and Tyrese. I don't actually remember off the top of my head what that conversation was about, aside from we've been through the same type of things, conversation that they've had earlier. So what was it about that scene you want to bring up?
Well, not to rub things in, but Tyrese does go into the fact that he beat up that guy back in the cabin, and he explains he explains to Sasha that he could have gone all the way, but he chose not to. So it wasn't a matter of he thought he was dead. It was in fact he chose not to kill somebody because of the state of mind that he was currently in. But he's also going. And the main intent of the scene is that Sasha shouldn't beat herself up over making certain decisions or whatnot because she's dealing with a lot of things. She's dealing with the Bob stuff, and just the nature of the world that they're in general. And as much as this stuff has been kind of on the side of things, I mean, because we're dealing with Rick and Beth and Gabriel, I do like the Tyrese Sasha relationship. If it means, and I know Jim, you're a fan of this as well. If it means Tyrese not having puppy dog eyes staring out windows and actually eliciting advice to somebody else, I can go along with that. I like seeing actors act in a show that's primarily about characters, and I think that's a good example of it for this episode.
Right.
Now that Beth is dead, does that mean Tyrese is the new Herschel, who's the new Dale?
Well, I mean, we see it in the way that he comes up the alternate plan to go to the hospital too. Rather, I mean, Rick's like Metal Gear Solid, go in and kill everybody from behind strategy, and then Tyrese, I mean, it's definitely part of his character. I'm a big fan of Tyrese in the books. I'm starting to become more of a fan of Tyrese in the show as it goes along.
I think they're still trying to shake it out with him, given how they've gone about getting his character to a certain point. So I guess we have to just kind of wait and see what kind of awesome he can become if that ever is going to happen. I guess I'm waiting to see what the status quo is when we get back to after the midseason and see who's doing what.
Yeah, because I could kind of see, and this is all speculation, but aside from maybe a few scenes set directly after this, I could see them doing another time jump in this season to kind of get past the grief and so they're not dealing with that constantly. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So let's get to that post-credit scene, similar to the one from the first episode of the season. We see Morgan, and he's continuing to follow marks on trees. We'd actually seen this particular mark earlier in the episode by the school when Father Gabriel was there, and he eventually comes to the church and he explores around, and he it almost seems like he's setting up a shrine, for lack of a better term, for a moment and taking a moment of prayer and reflection or whatever. But then he kind of laughs to himself and turns away from that, and he finds the map and note written for Rick by Abraham, which says Rick's name, Rick Grimes, in full on it, and he's shocked to learn that he's following Rick's trail. So it's interesting that it does not seem that he knew that he was following him.
I feel like we'll get more clarification on what. I think obviously we will, and when we actually.
We'll never come back to Morgan again.
Yeah, that's it. That's all Morgan again. It's a episode this year. It's just Morgan silently walking around.
I keep waiting for the scene where Morgan comes in on a zipline, guns blazing, like we keep hoping for.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. And this week he was decked out in like Denzel Washington Book of Eli type gear. So like
I saw that in your review and I thought the same thing when watching the episode. Yeah.
So I assume Morgan's blind. But with that said, obviously we'll get more of an idea of what he's been doing. And I mean, there's a possibility he could have known he was tracking Rick the whole time, and just was looking for clues or whatnot. And that's certainly quite the more of the helpful variety of clues. But regardless, I mean, yes, there's this whole scene of Morgan's about as long as the Star Wars trailer, so we barely know anything about it. But at the same time,
he pulls out that lightsaber, dude.
That was crazy. Oh my god, it was like Swiss Army knife of wonder. But it's I like seeing Lenny James, and I like seeing him do stuff. And it's not much, but it's him silently acting, and he's pretty effective at doing that apparently. Because I was just very intrigued by all this. Instead of being bored by Don using an exercise machine and talking to Beth about who cares, I'd rather just watch Lenny James silently go around and stalking zombies and going to church and laughing to himself. Like that's just fun to me. It's like, yeah, all right, cool. What's going on with him?
Well, I gotta say, my favorite element of this scene, aside from just, hey, it's Lenny James again, is the use of the note. I really love stuff like this where, did they have that note in the first place just so he could find it, and that's why it says Rick's name? Or did they look for things that they could believe to show that he was following the trail, or that he was discovering the trail, either one, and think, oh, this note will work? The fact that I don't know that answer, and that it worked really well for both things, it was a great little joke when it appeared the first time, and it was a great little indicator here. I love that. I love that I don't know if it was purposeful foreshadowing or just them being economical with the things they had available to them, but either way, it worked really well.
I was happy that I stuck around. Like, I didn't plan to stop it at the same time. I was like, all right, I guess I can get the remote. No, my God, there's something else happening. And I was happy that happened.
So, gentlemen, before we get to our ratings and all that, let's take a minute to talk about our sponsor. That's Discount Comic Book Service at dcbservice.com. Discount Comic Book Service, look, you hear us talk about them every week, and there's no surprise there. They're a great service. Comics are expensive. They cost a lot of money. I spend way too much money every week on funny books, but I love them. DCB Service is a great way to get those books way cheaper. 15, 20, 25, sometimes even as high as 50% or more on occasion. I'm sure with the Cyber Monday deals, which is when we're currently recording the Cyber Monday, I'm sure they had some awesome deals right there with Black Friday and everything. They've got the comics, they've got the trades, and also their sister site, InStockTrades.com. They've got the comic book related merchandise, the statues, the t-shirts, the hats, the hoodies, the skateboards, whatever you can imagine. If it's nerdy, if it's comic book related, there's a good chance they have it, and at a better deal than you're going to find pretty much anywhere else. So we thank them for their service, and we recommend, especially with the holidays coming up here, folks, check out DCBService.com, check out InStockTrades.com, and let them know that the Walking Dead TV podcast sent you.
Celebrate Kwanzaa in style. Get your Walking Dead hardcovers today.
Amen.
Buy a little plastic Daryl Dixon for someone you love.
We haven't had the ratings for the last couple weeks because every time I've looked for them before the episode, they weren't out yet. But we do have them this week, and with some interesting notes for the first half of the season. So I thought I would mention that. These numbers, of course, come from Nielsen, but specifically from TVByTheNumbers.com. So AMC's The Walking Dead, I'm reading here from the press release, caps first half of fifth season with strong year-over-year growth, plus 12% among all viewers from last year, and plus 13% from adults 18 to 49, which is the target demographic, which is the most important there for advertisers. They had the highest rated mid-season finale episode in the series history, of course, 14.8 million viewers, and 9.6 million of those in the 18 to 49 demographic. And across the first 8 episodes of the fifth season, The Walking Dead beat Sunday Night Football 5 times, and is television's #1 show among adults 18 to 49 overall.
Good game.
Talking Dead also delivered its highest rated mid-season finale episode in series history with 6.6 million viewers, and 4.2 of them in the 18 to 49 demographic.
It's a hard way to finally buy that yacht, right?
He can buy that second yacht to then just build them as giant shoes for a giant statue of whatever he wants. Because, God help him. Kudos to him. That is awesome.
It is.
I'm
having fun, but yeah, I mean, it's just impressive. It's like, fifth season of a TV show, it just keeps expanding. It's like a virus. More so than a TV show anymore.
And we've said it before, but not recently. For folks who don't follow television ratings, this doesn't happen. You do not have a show
On
that
cable.
just gets on cable, but even on networks either recently. You do not have shows that start out strong and just keep getting stronger. Maybe in the second season you get a bit of a bump if a show had really good word of mouth, but a show plateaus very early in its run and then ratings drop consistently year over year. You do not have shows like this that go up by these kind of numbers every year for 5 years. It just does not happen.
It's pretty much the inverse of the way most shows go. Like the pilot starts strong and then you lose viewers by attrition usually in the first few seasons and bring them back by word of mouth or what have you. So it's like pretty much the opposite of what the model is usually for television shows. Also, oddly enough, it kind of parallels the model of the comic. And the comic started out pretty small and then it just snowballed, which is pretty much the opposite of the way comics work too. Usually, number one is your best-selling issue. So it's kind of interesting. It's like the inverse of the conventional wisdom success model.
Yeah, I don't think I talked about it last week, but I just last week read the newest trade paperback from the Walking Dead comic, which just came out, and they have those times where things get a bit quiet for a few trades, and it's interesting, but it's not like the best you've ever read. But this most recent one, and the ones in front of that as well, man, it's been on a good stretch of the last 2 or 3 trades. I am super into the comic right now, so if you were behind on the comics, catch up because they're doing some really cool things right now.
I feel like terrible because hardcover 10's been sitting on my table. I can really see it in front of me right now for a good month and a half now, and I've still not read it. I'm so busy.
Is that All Out War, or is that hardcover number 11?
I think it might be All Out War. I don't know, but
All Out War is great, and this new one that just came out is also just fantastic.
like hardcover 9 had issue 100 in it, so going off of that, I still don't know exactly, but
Yeah, it might be at least the road to All Out War, because I think they're up to like the 120s now, and there's 12 issues per hardcover. But and either way, it's been on a really good stretch right now, so I definitely recommend it to people who have fallen behind. They're in a good place.
the only other show, like Game of Thrones maybe, is like a show that's maybe somewhat comparable.
Yeah, Game of Thrones, the last half season of Breaking Bad had a big bump for it, but its numbers were still really small.
I mean, yeah, there was never like a powerhouse ratings thing. Like Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones freezes internet servers from everybody trying to get on HBO Go to watch the damn thing.
Yeah.
So
and even there, its numbers, and granted, it's PlayStation, but it's less than Walking Dead by a considerable margin. But
maybe only
those are pretty much 2 examples.
Maybe when we finally start our Game of Thrones podcast, Winter is Cozy, we'll talk about the ratings then.
So, gentlemen, let's give our ratings for this episode. Our best ratings, 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Jim, what did you think of this episode?
I have to give this one a 3.75, and that's been my lowest rating for this whole season because it's been a pretty solid season so far, in my opinion. It just the parts of it that worked really well. The bits with Rick were really good, I thought, but then other parts of it just did not grab me as much. The whole, as you mentioned, the whole Father Gabriel sequence and stuff, a lot of that didn't make any sense to me at all. Why, and even though he's been sheltered like that, why would he make such a bonehead move? So, like I said, this episode's kind of a mixed bag for me. There are parts of it I thought were very cool, and parts of it I just did not appreciate. Kind of scratched my head. I'm glad that Dawn is going. I know that's callous to say, but at least she didn't hang around for us to really, really hate her like we did with Lori. So, 3.75 for me.
Aaron, what'd you think?
I'll be a little bit lower at a 3.5. And even that's still positive. Like, that certainly doesn't mean it's a bad episode of television, because I certainly didn't think it was a bad episode of television. And I know, listeners of this podcast, I think I'm just yelling at the flaws in this episode. I apologize if it makes it seem like this is really negative on it, but I just did have gripes with it. And I think it's because I feel like season 5 has mostly been very solid. And just like Jim said, this was his lowest rated one, but for the most part, it's been a very solid season so far. Even with Slabtown as an episode where I wasn't a huge fan of either. I liked a lot of things in that episode with like Beth and whatnot, but just the season in general. I really liked the opening of it. I really liked some of these character episodes. I really liked the Abraham episode a lot. And this one just feels like it's a bit of a letdown based on us getting to this point, having all the pieces set up in this way where I felt like something really cool could have happened. And instead, it was just more of a mixed bag and a loss of tension that comes from me not caring about certain characters and having idiotic decisions being made by the part of characters. Just a lot of that just rubbed me the wrong way. So I just kind of I'm more down on it than I would have liked to be, but I still think it's a good episode of The Walking Dead. It's not a very great one, especially not for the mid-season finale.
Like I said in the beginning of the episode, I fully recognize I'm an outlier on this one, but I was really surprised when I finished watching the episode and set up the Buster ratings thread and started to get some other stuff online to see that while I really like this episode, the rest of the population of the planet seemed to be middling to disappointed with it. I'm actually going to give this one a 4.5. Even with the Father Gabriel stuff, which, like I said, at least was mitigated by the fact that he barely spoke in it and it gave us some at least cool zombie action. That might have bothered me, but in general, I thought this was a pretty solid episode in context by itself. In the context of the season, my number might be a bit lower, but I'm just taking this episode by itself, so 4.5 for me. And yeah, I realize I'm an outlier, but I don't know. I like this one. I don't know what to say.
You and podcast fan Mike Jones, you guys can high five each other. You're both big on this one. So good on you.
Digital high five, Mike.
There you go.
Aaron, Rich couldn't make it tonight because he had to work late, but he sent us his thoughts. So would you mind letting our listeners know what he thought of Coda?
I can do that. And by the way, Rich, if you're listening to this episode, don't feel like I didn't see your post of R.I.P. Beth followed right by the Walking Dead post of R.I.P. Beth. So people just spoil things nonstop. Anyway, his review he has here. My takeaway from the fall finale was a mixed bag. There were some good moments, but overall we got an end to a story arc that was pretty much a throwaway in my opinion. The entire Grady Hospital arc felt forced. Other than gaining Noah and losing Beth, nothing really came of it. It was cool to see badass Rick again, but his lack of pushing back on Daryl and Tyrese's trade plan was a miss. Why do we not see more of a schism between Rick and Daryl over the plan? Daryl's decision to go along with Tyrese, let's all be hippie and peace, and it will all work out. Plan ultimately cost them Beth. She would still be alive if Daryl and Tyrese's cycles had not synced up and let their feelings get in the way. This was Emily's best performance in the episode. Maggie does not mention her sister for 7 episodes. Now she's all worried, and of course she loses her. The last 5 minutes were good television. I am done with Father Gabriel. Looking forward to February. 3.25 busters out of 5.
Now, since you have his text still there in front of you, he didn't text it to us, but he texted his email. What was he saying about him thinking there should be a schism between Daryl and Rick? Because it seems to me Daryl has gotten whatever comeuppance there might be already from that he lost Beth.
He's still yeah, but
True. Like, who's going to be mad at who at this point?
That's very
true.
That's
my real
that's
question.
very true, and that goes into what's going to happen in the next couple episodes, I guess, and how he might regret going about certain plans. Although I kind of doubt we're going to see much more of Daryl reacting to the choice that was made and how to go about things. Because really, there wasn't a problem with the plan. There was a problem with Dawn, and there was a problem with Beth. Really, I think that's what it stabbed her and got shot in the face. But yeah, it seems to him he's focusing on last week's decision more than this week's episode, where Daryl was just cool with what Tyrese was saying, and I am too. I mean, the plan worked for what it was in the process. It was just more of an unforeseen variable occurred that made things go south, which is not to be unexpected on a show called The Walking Dead, where people die constantly. But I don't have much of a problem with Tyrese's plan or even Rick's decision to go along with that plan. I don't think that was the crux of why things turned out the way they did.
Fair enough. I still think it was a bad plan, but I can't wait to see how they deal with that in the second half of the season.
I mean, do we want to walk through what the other plan was? Just Rick killing everybody and maybe getting out alive of everybody? Like, were there no possible bad things going on in that plan? Because I mean, the plan they had, the only problem with the plan was that Beth decided to stab the person that shot her in the shoulder. I mean, that's out of control of either Tyrese or Rick when it comes to planning things.
Right.
Fair enough. So, Jim, what did our listeners think of this week's episode?
Well, we have a pretty vocal and active Facebook group. I encourage all of you to join it. It's the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group. If you've heard of Facebook, it's very popular with the young people. It's on the computer world. And we every week ask for your reactions and your ratings and busters, 1 being not very good and 5 being the best. As always, our community has not let us down. We got some really good responses this week. Bringing Brent Jones, 3.5, the day the music dies, out of 5. Loved Rick in this one. 2 great lines. Shut up after killing Lamson, and they're around after Sasha snipes a walker. Watching Maggie get so happy hearing Beth is out there and everyone load up to go get her led to the really great scene where Mag sees Beth carried out. Her breaking down was incredible acting and made me genuinely feel sad for her. Too much time spent on going into detail on the hospital cops. I agree. Seems like we got more time with them than we did with the far more interesting termites. I agree there. I left Gabriel out there. That's what you get, you dumbass. But really got excited to see the fire truck pull up. Everard sent Maria 4 walkers slicing their heads in half, out of 5. Strong episode, but very Walking Dead comic, like when no one wins. That's true. Like the Mexican standoff, but wondered why Dawn mimicked. She didn't intend it. She obviously had her gun out expecting something. Gabriel was somewhat redeemed, as I'm sure they wanted. Still lots of dumb horror movie trips around him and Michonne and Carl to church. Another downside was Maggie all of a sudden caring about Beth, so kind of the opposite side of the coin from what Brent said in his comment. Tom Bono, 2.5 boring backstories. I was very disappointed in this mid-season finale. Then we spent way too much time with unimportant characters and the whole Maggie Beth fiasco. Don't get me started. Trishel Terrell Collins, 4, Gabriel's machetes, out of 5. But did Del Walker actually split her head in 2 with that fall? The show up seemed stellar. I still don't get what Dawn's thing was about Beth. Strange, sad, bring on Morgan. I agree with you. Brian Arnold, 2 surgical scissors, out of 5. A lackluster storyline treated with more gravity than it deserved, and a poor way to kill a major character. The cops were uninteresting villains, and even though I wasn't a big Beth fan, the character I thought deserved better than this. Pamela Burton, 3 Busters. I was really sad to see Beth die, and seeing the actress crying on The Talking Dead was sad as well. But I think Maggie's reaction would have been more impactful if they at least had her mention or wonder about her sister sometime throughout the season. Something that Aaron brought up as well. Daryl crying felt more sincere because he at least tried to look for her. Also, the episode of Slow Time, the stuff the cops was boring, and Gabriel leading the school walkers to the church was predictable. Susan Monk, 3 too late confessions, out of 5. Hey, I remember saying that. Some cool walker kills. Our team really works well together. The hospital cops didn't have a chance when they came to me with Rick in the parking garage. It was great to see him in a gun bell again, by the way. Sad about Beth, but glad her touch was more emotional than a death during a hostage situation on another show. Currently in its final season, but that's a story from another podcast. Not sure which one show she's referring to there. Robin Young Sanders, 3 Busters. The best I come up with for this episode is meh. I thought it was a little better than that, but I get where she's coming from. David J. Gary got 4.5. My heart was actually racing from the tension in the last 15 minutes. What else can I ask for? Also, the baddest of ass we've seen of Rick so far. Craig DeMont at 4.5. Crazy Rick starting his Crown Vic, out of 5. Love Grand Theft Auto's Modown of Officer Bob. Also, Michonne had some great kills. Bear McCreary's score was pure movie quality. And Morgan hated Grady Bunch characters that are boring and one-dimensional. Glad to see them go. R.I.P. Beth. I know there's a lot of Beth hate out there, but I'd honestly rather see her survive instead of Noah. I liked where her character was going.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, going around Reddit right now, there is a re-edited version of that opening scene, or the end of it, or the middle of it, I guess, with Rick hitting Officer Lamson, where it ends with the screen fading to black and the words "wasted" coming up, a la GTA.
Oh,
So.
good.
Nice.
Thank you.
I know you've been playing a lot of GTA 5 lately, Jordan.
It's a good game.
Matt Stoker, 3.5, bloody fire trucks, out of 5. This was okay as an episode, but kind of weak for a mid-season finale. Beth was finally getting interesting. Stupid Dawn. Mike Jones, 5 silent singers, out of 5. Rick Grimes back in fine form in a solid episode from start to finish. Ernest Dickerson delivers. Mary Tarkaki, 4 dead doodlebugs. 2 things saved me from being utterly disappointed. Rick Grimes shut up in the last 10 minutes. I think I'll need to revisit the first half with any hope appreciate the hospital arc. Right now, I feel it just didn't work. I'm kind of with you on that one. Shame about Beth, even though her singing annoyed me more than I actually liked. I actually like the character. Let's face it, she's done more than Tyrese. Oh man, I hope we get more of Morgan in the second half too. Shayla Benson Vega, 4 Rick World Cops, out of 5. Hey, you came up with that too, Aaron. I love that Rick is on full comic book mode. AMC spoiled it for me when they posted a picture of Daryl holding Beth immediately after the episode aired. Ian Tim's 4 out of 5 missing stop signs. Not as action packed as I hope. Still some odd decisions. Enjoyed the footstep direction. Hezron Mac, 3.5 hostage exchanges are bad ideas. Tyrese is out of 5. The open and ending were stunning. The middle was a mixed bag. The talks with Beth and what's her name seemed clunky. I guess she means Dawn. The Terminus villains had more intrigue to them and would have been better candidates to flesh out, and stuff with the Reverend was irritating. Luke Smith, despite knowing it was a possibility, I'm absolutely gutted. Beth is gone. Glad Carol is still with us though. I like that we got to see Rick mow down someone down in a vehicle, reminding me of the prison story arc in the comics where he ran down Martinez. That is true. Monica Smith and Cito, 3 what's up with Dawn's, out of 5. I really just didn't get Dawn in her whole interaction with Beth. I'm with you on that one, Monica. It took up so much of the episode, I guess they needed to set up the ending. I still didn't get it. What a waste of a character death. Maybe someone can explain that to me. Also, I totally agree with Pamela Burns' earlier post. Her assessment was dead on. Megan's reaction was sincere, would have had more weight if she'd been holding out hope that Beth was alive all this time. Richard Chopper Cherry Charrington, my favorite name to say week after week. I finally got up after my holiday in the USA and just watched the mid-season finale. I've got to give that episode 5 Bobsy King barbecued legs, out of 5. That episode was up there for me with the season opener. Loved it and loved the little Morgan teaser at the end. Really can't wait for February for the second half of the season. Daryl Taylor from the Taylor Network of Podcasts. I did enjoy the scenes of the hospital, but the church scene seems pointless to me. Overall, it gets 2.5 scissors, out of 5. Leo Cavallo, 4 out of 5 close-up headshots. Good episode overall. I can't wait to see how they tap the Morgan story with the rest of the group since it's obvious he is still a good period of time behind them. Jimmy Tucker, 4.25 official AMC Walking Dead Facebook page spoiling Beth's deaths, out of 5. I watched Walking Dead on Mondays via iTunes, and last night about a little after 10 Eastern I was scrolling through Facebook, and the official Walking Dead Facebook page had a huge image of Daryl carrying Beth and the message R.I.P. Beth. The episode was I've seen a lot of people complain about them. I thought the episode was good. Thought Rick's portions of the episode were the strongest. Like seeing more of Morgan at the end. Robert Nigro, 3 senseless deaths of singers, out of 5. I need to rewatch this episode, but I doubt the rating will change. I feel the logical as many above me express are usually covered over decently on first view by the show's renowned zombie kill action, but then there's some more measure thought fall apart. Roger Austin gives a 4 impaled walkers. Nice build to the episode with a great ending that left me with a tear in my eye. The second half of the season should be interesting with Morgan getting closer to and reuniting with Rick. And how far gone is Rick after murdering the cop he didn't have to? Offering to take in any patience, quote unquote, seemed to redeem him, especially considering Beth had just been killed. But how much more of the humanity Rick's been trying to hold on to will he lose in the near future? Should be good stuff watching that journey. And finally, Sarah Ann Howard. I did like this episode. I give it 4 out of 5 fire truck rescues. Father Gabriel Sweet sequences were the weakest of the episode. Why is that character still alive? Michonne got some kick-ass katana action in there, though, and with Judas strapped to her back, she's as bad as her badasses. Yeah, I got a little Lone Wolf and Cub vibe off of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad the Grady Memorial arc is finally complete. So thankful Carol survived. While I've not been a big fan of Beth, I think that she should have at least been able to get the kill on Dawn and been killed by a stray shoot rather than a straight on kill shot. That stupid Dawn person. Wonderful acting by the team. Norman Reedus' reaction to Beth's departure was so spot on, as was Rick's reaction. He thought they had a done deal, and Andrew Lincoln showed his anguish from losing Beth at that last moment. While Maggie seems disconnected emotionally from her sister, her devastation at seeing Beth in Daryl's arms at the end was so heartbreaking. I'm so excited to see Morgan approaching and can't wait to see him cross paths with Team Rick. And dang, February for more WD? That sucks. And if you too would like to submit your reviews, thoughts, opinions about the Walking Dead TV show, if you'd like to be able to keep up on the latest news and announcements, also there are links in our Walking Dead TV podcast group to reviews that Aaron writes every week for the Walking Dead. Although he has a break now until February, but you can read all his reviews from the first half of this season at theyoungfolks.com, and there are links there in our Facebook group to that. So check that out as well.
Yeah,
of course, man.
It is. I do like doing the write-ups, as you guys know, and I, even as much as I kind of yelling about this episode, and I'm doing the same in the review. I do try to inject my humor into it, which I hope I'm doing in this podcast as well. And also, it's going to be nice to take a little bit of a break because there's a lot of work to do, or a whole write-up review, like within a few hours for several weeks at a time. So looking forward to
It's
getting
not
back
just this, and it's not just the show you write up. You write up Gotham every week too, right?
Yep, and I'll be writing up other shows as they come on. And I know, like, I wrote about the Americans, and that'll be coming back soon next year.
Yeah, great show. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can find in our Facebook group. Please check it out, the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group on the Facebooks.
I mean, I just updated the cover page. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I really would love to have this Terminus Steakhouse logo on an apron.
Yeah,
for barbecue purposes, of course.
obviously.
So that's pretty much it for this week's discussion of The Walking Dead. We will have, of course, a little bit to talk about after the end here for, when we come back in the spring. For anyone who doesn't want to hear any spoilers, though, I will say that Walking Dead will return on February 8th, 2015. And we'll probably have a few episodes in between here and there. We've got a few plans. We'll keep them secret for now, but you'll find out eventually. But so February 8th, 2015 is when The Walking Dead comes back, which means you can expect to hear from us at the very least very soon after that. But until then, you can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 972-798-3830 or send us an email, wdtv@hhwlod.com. That's right, it's a brand new email address. Hopefully it's a little bit easier for everybody. wdtv@hhwlod.com. But just check out hhwlod.com for all of our great shows, like Half Hour Wasted, which put out a brand new show yesterday. The Long Box of Doom, The Black Box, out now with Aaron and Abe. Aaron, what are you and Abe talking about this week?
Actually, this week, because there wasn't a major movie release, we're talking about just a lot of news items, movie-related news items in general, including new trailers for Star Wars and Jurassic World and stuff like that.
And last week we talked about The Hunger Games Mockingjay, which was a very fun episode.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
And of course, Jersey Shore, the Ichabod Cranecast, which also just put out a new episode the other day, didn't it?
The Ichabod Cranecast has been out a new episode recently, and this week is the fall finale of Sleepy Hollow, so we'll have a new episode coming up this week as well.
Very nice. You can hear lots more of Jim and many more HHWLOD personalities on the DC TV podcast, or you can hear some of the other folks on It's All Connected, a Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. If it's nerdy, if it's fun, we're probably talking about it on at least a couple shows. You can find them all at hhwlod.com. You can follow us on Twitter at HHWLOD_network. I'm at Jordan from Jersey. Aaron is at Aaron's PS4, and Jim is at Yoda Jones. And so until there's no more room left in hell and Dead Walk the Earth, remember, we'll see you next year. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
And we don't have a lot of information for the mid-season premiere next year, but here's what we have, of course. Spoilers, if you don't want to know anything, stay far away. But here's what we know. It'll be on February 8th, 2015. It'll be directed by Greg Nicotero and written by Scott Gimple, which is, as we've seen so far, a pretty good team when it comes to producing episodes, writing and directing there. And we do have a couple other bits of information, or specifically one bit of information and some scenes. We basically just saw scenes of people grieving Beth's death and kind of coming to terms with what had happened for the mid-season premiere. That's about what we have in terms of scenes. But we did have a very interesting bit of information from Kirkman. And I'm going to be vague here because I don't want to spoil anything from the comics, but he did say, because he was talking about the whole is Daryl gay thing, and he came out and said that while they had discussed the possibility in the beginning of creating the character, they eventually settled on him being straight, that there will be a gay character introduced into the show, another gay character, we should say, of course, because there's Tara, but one specifically from the comics. And for anyone who's read the comics, there's only been a handful of gay characters, very interesting ones, only a handful, and at least to my memory, all of them showed up in one specific area. And anyone who's read the comics knows what that means and knows something what that might mean, where the show is going, and anyone who hasn't, well, you haven't been spoiled, aside from the fact that we'll have some new fun characters. I'm sure lots of fun new characters next season, or next half of the season. Kirkman also said to expect the show to be very different next year. They're going to be trying out some new things that they haven't done before, which of course they do every year.
Yeah, okay.
But he made it seem like the format would be different than anything we've seen so far.
It'll be more
so I'm
sitcom-y.
just see what that means. Yeah,
There'll be a laugh track.
Rick, I'm home.
There'll be a lot more flashbacks, Lost style.
I don't know if that would completely bother me. I've liked what they've done with flashbacks so far. I mean, I don't know if I want to see every episode to the extent that Lost did, but they could do more flashbacks. It wouldn't bother me.
Did you also read what Kirkman said this week about how he kind of regretted doing the CDC episode when he did?
Yeah,
I read that earlier. He didn't like the way that wrapped up. He thought Edward Jenner was a much more interesting character, but that also they shouldn't have given so much information about like France and stuff, if I remember correctly, because the comic never deals with what the rest of the world is doing.
Yeah. I completely agree with Kirkman on what he was saying about that. With that said, I get the reason to do something like that because it's a show for people that don't necessarily watch zombie movies, so they're not always in tune on the rules of zombiehood. So providing some kind of episode that gets into that a little bit, I can see how that would make viewers of a show like this feel less alienated to the world of zombie media. So I see where it comes from.
I get my biggest complaint with it, and I think this is kind of where Kirkman is going with this, or at least this is my reading into it based on my own opinion, but is that it led many viewers to think, okay, the Cure is a thing that we should be looking forward to expecting. Yeah. And in the comics, no, it's not. With the exception of the Eugene thing, which is the same thing as here, the Cure, just like in pretty much any other good zombie story, movie, comic, whatever, is not an issue. It's zombies are here to stay, and everybody who could cure it, if there was a possible cure, is dead. So just forget about it, and it's all about survival.
I think that does tie into people that are just not as familiar with zombie media to really recognize that fact of,
fair enough.
We're not headed towards ending this, we're headed towards just more of this.
I just felt like it was stuff that they didn't need to explain. I mean, why explain more than, I thought that was like, not to go back to Star Wars like our previous thing, but I thought that was one of the weaknesses of the prequels, that they felt they need to explain everything. A lot of times in stories, there are things that you don't really need to explain. There are zombies.
And then there are trade negotiations.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. And I haven't rewatched season 1 episodes in a long time, but it'd be interesting to do that for like commentary or something in the future. But with that in mind, the other thing is that it is going into the characters, exploring who Rick wants to be in this world versus who Jenner decides to be, and I see where that episode comes from. An episode that we all like. We don't dislike this episode or whatever, but I mean,
and it seemed like Kirkman was mostly talking about the fact that the rest of the world was also working on a cure. That was the big detail that he didn't like including. He also didn't like killing off Jenner so early, I believe.
Yeah.
Which I kind of agree with. There was no Emmerich, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was excellent.
He was on the Americans.
Currently
was.
He is. Yeah.
So anything else about this half season before we sign off?
I think it's been a strong half season. I think after the more character-driven half season we had before, where the group was kind of broken up and they got to focus on individual characters, that this has been kind of a roller coaster ride all along. We've had some really cool crescendo moments in this half season. So overall, I've been really happy with it.
Well, here's looking forward to the second half of season 5. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you definitely in February, but I'm sure we'll have quite a few things coming out between now and then. So stay close to the feed and have happy holidays.
Beth, I hear you calling, but I can't come home right now. Me and the boys are playing, and we just can't find the sound.
I didn't say record. Did you hit it anyway? I hit record and went, wait, I forgot something.
Like, were you pointing at the thing, like, with your fingers, 3, 2, and then you just went...
Well, I pointed at it in the sense that I put my finger down on my trackpad to hit record, and my finger kind of arced past the record button on the screen to get down to the trackpad to give you a visual.
Anyway, too many cooks. Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
I thought we were starting over again.
What, really?
Yeah, really. After you said that, I started over.
Yeah, I started over too.
Oh, God. So we stop right now? Should I stop this?
Too
No,
many
I'm
cooks
recording,
can
I'm
spoil the broth, but to fill our lives with love.
Too many cooks.
Have you guys seen any of the other infomercials we've done, like a salad mixer or the fart copter?
I don't know how to find these things. This is way for the internet.
Probably on
YouTube.
adultswim.com or YouTube.com/adultswim. Probably.
They're putting them on Adult Swim like 4 in the morning, and they're only listing them as infomercials. So you might actually hit a real infomercial if you try to watch it when it's on, but they're popping up on YouTube. But the solid mix. I mean, they're all Rob Hoyle's done a few of them. The comedian, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, Rob Hoyle, I know.
Yeah, he's on Human Giant with Rob Sheeran as season. Sorry. Yeah.
And was he part of Stella? No, he wasn't part of Stella.
No. Yeah. But yeah, I recommend all the Smart Pipe is probably the best. It scans your fecal matter and then tweets and goes to social media and let everyone know. And like say if it scans like Big Mac refuse in your waste, it'll give you a coupon for another Big Mac.
That's the kind of Jim Deeds line that I want people to just like stumble into. Like it's on the radio. It's like it scans your fecal matter and then tweets like, "What was that? I need to keep listening to this show."
It's the Smart Pipe.
I want the person that's like the killer in Too Many Cooks. I want to know what his life is like right now as he walks around town.
Probably far less interesting than that video.
Do people like take me signs that say like fake names from Too Many Cooks characters on his back when he's walking around?
I hope that he trucks around that eagle from the video.
Yeah.
He just keeps it on his shoulder.
That dude who's like peeping through the window at the blonde.
Yeah.
Totally looks like Lucas King, one of our listeners.
Oh, he does kind of actually.
One of our longtime listeners and fans. Yeah. Totally looks like Lucas. I was like, it's Lucas. Well, I guess that's Lucas. But of course, he'd already seen it.
So this is 128, by the way, Jordan.
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
sure you know. It's a few weeks after 123. So.
That is correct. All right.
Probably 5 weeks, I would guess.
Yeah, it's a good assumption.
It's mathematical.
And comic spoiler: when Morgan goes to Washington D.C. and alerts the president and stops the zombie apocalypse, it's gonna be crazy how they put that on the show, right? I mean,
it's a little bit of a stretch when you realize that this means the president was not aware of the zombie apocalypse for the last 2.5 years, but eventually you get it. With the Coke problem and all that, it makes sense.
When do they find out? Spoiler for the comics that Steve Gutenberg is now the president.
And he's trying to reform Three Men and a Baby, which means Judith is going to be very important in season 6.
she is the chosen one. I don't know if you established that.
She is the little baby.
So enough of that.
Now the real question is: leave this in the episode or move it to the bloopers? Because I love it either way. Anyway,
And when there's no more women having the dead must walk the earth, remember, choose your hospital and your healthcare as if your life depended on it.
Hurry up, Percy!
Where are my strawberries?